Welcome back to Sekulow. We're joined by Congressman Darin LaHood from Illinois' 18th Congressional District. Congressman LaHood, we appreciate you being with us. You serve on the House Intel Committee. You were at the State of the Union. Let me just ask you, I know you put out a statement about the State of the Union, a lot of failed policies already in it. I thought it was this unique opportunity for a president of the United States, because they don't always get this, Congressman, where it's not just the American people that might be tuning in, but Vladimir Putin, the Russian people, the Ukrainian president, and our European allies. What did you take from the State of the Union last night?
Well, Jay, first of all, thanks for having me on. Good to be with you and your listeners. A couple things. I thought, his beginning of the State of the Union talking about Ukraine, I thought was pretty good on being united, supporting Zelensky, supporting the Ukrainian people. I thought that was good. Obviously, 90% of the speech was based on domestic policy, and I think it was a lot of empty rhetoric. He talked about defunding police. I mean, why wasn't he mentioning that 2 years ago when BLM was burning down federal buildings and desecrating them and committing crimes? So it's a little hard to listen to that, talking about securing the southern border. His rhetoric hasn't matched any of that. He tore up President Trump's Mexico contractual obligation on day one. He's continued to do everything to keep the border open. So, listen, I'm all for being united on Ukraine. I think there's many of us that want to be there on that. I thought that was positive. But, in terms of the state of our union when it comes to our domestic policy, it is very, very weak.
Congressman, I'd like to talk about going back to Ukraine for a moment. We're still importing from Russia 600,000 to 800,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, here's what is mind-boggling to me. If we are really trying to put on sanctions that really matter, and of course the President Biden closed down the pipeline that would have produced 830,000 barrels a day here in the United States. If we were really trying to do crippling sanctions, and that's the word that everybody likes to use, one would think that we would stop taking their oil, which is what's propping their economy up right now, which is in real trouble and probably would bring it to its knees.
Well, Jay, you're exactly right on that. We are giving Putin every single day on those 600,000 barrels of oil. We're giving him $75 million a day that goes directly into his coffers. That's absolutely ridiculous. But that's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen on Friday. It's going to happen on Saturday. We have the ability to shut that off. Now, I to your point, where are we going to make up those 500, 600,000 barrels of oil? This should have been thought about a year ago or 2 years ago when Biden came in initially 14 months ago and shut down the Keystone Pipeline on day one. Should have been thought about when we had energy and independence under President Trump. But clearly that wasn't thought of. And so Biden's put us in a very, very tough spot, because if we cut off that oil, gas prices are going to skyrocket. But in some ways, cutting off that $75 million from Putin, I think is worth doing. But because there wasn't a lot of forethought that went into this and a lot of planning, we're left with, again, decisions being made by Biden that put us in a very tough spot.
Yeah, Congressman, you're also the House Intel Committee. I know you can't share classified information, but you've been getting a lot of briefings. There's been a lot of briefings from members of Congress on those committees. And the American people, I think, they see the images out of Ukraine. They do understand how horrific it is. There is still, I think, it's not even fair to say a division about whether Americans support engaging in a no-fly zone, which is like getting into war. But they certainly are a bit confused. Where are your colleagues right now? Where are you and your colleagues right now when it comes to further assistance to Ukraine?
Well, we hear a lot about lethal weapons and giving them to Ukraine. And listen, Stingers are great, Javelins are great, assault weapons are fine. But when they have to face the might and the power of Russia, unfortunately, those aren't going to work. And so we're at a real inflection point, Jay, on what we do. What if we would have had some insight and would have planned accordingly and been doing things a year ago? We could have given them Black Hawk helicopters. Right now, there's nobody in Ukraine that can fly a Black Hawk helicopter. Giving them Patriot missile defense systems to stop the missiles from coming in from Russia. They don't have those. Looking at further high-capacity drones and UAVs. They don't have the capacity to fly those. And then looking at, of course, F-16s. But none of those can be flown by anybody in Ukraine right now. So we're in a tough spot. And so it's what is NATO going to do to step up? What else can we do to give them the firepower that they need? And frankly, Jay, that really concerns me. I know we're going to look at passing a package next week that's going to continue to give more weapons. But, what we're up against with Russia is, it's very, very difficult to overcome with what Ukraine has right now.
Yeah, I want to go to a domestic issue for a moment because the president mentioned securing the border and fixing the immigration situation in the United States. Now, I've been working on this for 30 years, and the border was being secured in the previous administration, and President Biden stopped that. So I'm trying to figure out, Congressman, of your colleagues, who's he talking to here?
Well, he knows that it's an election year, and he knows he's on the wrong side of the American people on this by a large margin. I mean, Jay, you look at, we were letting in 400,000 people a month last summer. I mean, absolutely crazy. People blatantly violating the law. We had the lowest levels of immigration on our southern border under President Trump, under the policies that you and lots of others were engaged with. Because we work with the Mexicans, we work with the Central American countries, we got it under control. We worked on the border wall. We worked with our Border Patrol agents. That worked. Supporting the rule of law worked. His rhetoric last night, I don't believe one word of it. I think it's because he knows he's in a very, very difficult election cycle, and he's so far underwater in the polls domestically. And it's, again, I don't think you'll see any policies put forth or any changes in terms of what he's doing at the southern border. He can't go against his radical socialist left.
And final question for you, Congressman. You spoke to these kind of empty issues that have already failed in Congress. You've already voted down in Congress. And for all indications, it looks like there will be a lot more Republicans in the House serving with you and a majority, and likely in the Senate as well. And yet President Biden went back to basically Build Back Better. He didn't say Build Back Better, but it was the parts of Build Back Better that have already failed in Congress.
Well, Jay, listen, I mean, when I talk to people in Peoria, Illinois, where I represent, I mean, they can't believe the high cost of paying their electric bill, filling their car up with gas, going to buy groceries. I mean, it's crazy. And so the way you fix that is you stop spending money. We've spent $7 trillion of taxpayer money in the last 2 years that's deficit spending. We have so much money sloshing around the economy right now. That's what's leading to inflation and supply chain issues and not getting people to work. We've disincentivized people to work. Biden needs to stop spending money. But to your point, Jay, what did he talk about last night? More government programs, raising the minimum wage, more government programs for healthcare, more when it comes to education, taxing businesses and corporations, going the wrong way that's going to exacerbate all of these things that are driving inflation. Unfortunately, we have to fortunately, we as Republicans have to capitalize on this election year and make sure that we rub his nose in it.
Congressman Darin LaHood of Illinois' 18th Congressional District, thanks so much for joining us, giving your thoughts on the State of the Union as you attended, and because of your role in that House Intel Committee. I know all that information on Ukraine that you shared. People they want this kind of information. I appreciate you joining us, Congressman. Let's go right to the phones, 1-800-684-3110. Let's go to Tim in Virginia online.